welcome back. This is Philip Bickle at Legal Tyranny. It is August 28th, 2021. It's been a while since I posted anything. I'm still fighting mold poisoning. It's kicking my butt. And yeah, this is going to be an ongoing thing for me. I've got to fight this, but I had to make a comment. I've got, I don't know, maybe 10 to 20% of the people that come on a channel are the people that are actively involved in some sort of thing with the law, and unfortunately they've basically stumbled onto somebody like Karl Lentz. In my opinion, this individual is somebody who's been hired by either government officials in some capacity or bar association members also in some capacity. And what he does is provide false information so that people that have a fire in them and are ready to fight go in with the wrong tools and they get their ass handed to them in court. So if you want to lose in a courtroom, uh, I don't mean to put this individual down, but this procedure, this approach, this attitude, this is going to cause you to lose, guaranteed lose. It doesn't matter if you lose and you think and you go around saying, well, they're corrupt, they're this, they're that. Yeah, they might be, but you didn't bring anything to the table actually fully demonstrating that. So when you go into the courtroom, things that you should be concerned with are coming from primary sources. The law is only on paper. So let's run through this basic process that all of us should have been taught in elementary school. And I don't think that's when it should have been taught, but I think it was taught then because they knew it's generally too complicated and too far apart in time from when we may actually have to use it for us to actually make proper use of it and remember it. Okay, so I was taught this stuff in one of my advanced placement courses in elementary school. I think it was fourth grade. I also, for those of you that have been in this path of studying things, that's when Dun and Bradstreet was first mentioned to me. Dun and Bradstreet. If you're familiar with it, look it up. If not, I can state as an absolute fact in fourth grade, it was in one of my texts. And I don't know why that name stuck out to me, but it happens to be one that did stick out. And when you look at what it's involved in, these people that are above us, our owners, they're rubbing our faces in shit. And they're doing it while we're little. They're telling us all this stuff when you're little. The first time that you may actually, the average person will first encounter something with the law, probably through traffic-related things. So that's not going to happen to them until they're at least maybe 16 years old. And the information on just the basics of how law, is carried out, how their laws are created, et cetera, that sort of thing was also taught to me in fourth and fifth grade. So I was about 9 and 10 years old. That's a good 5 to 6, yeah, what is it? The trainer's permit? I forget what it's called. Whatever it is that you get before the driver's license. You can start that at about 15 some years old. So anyways, 5 to 6 years down the road is when you may first encounter anything related to law. And it's not even dealing with those specifics, but it's the first encounter. So, most people are pretty much illiterate when it comes to law. So, say somebody's got the motivation to try to fight, the first thing they're going to do is try to, find other people that are fighting That's the typical thing. Now, this guy stumbled onto Karl Lentz, unfortunately. If you guys trust anything that I put out, please trust this. There are people that get promoted. If you're hearing their names a lot in certain topics, it doesn't matter if it's just law. If it has some sort of political power behind it, then there's a good chance that there are agents for stronger entrenched political power. They've had to basically atomize the operations because things like the mainstream media do not, like, there's other sources of information people can get, especially on the internet. Okay, so what they've had to do is remodel, restructure things for being able to control and modify people's perception. So perception management is something that the ruling class engages in on the rest of us. That perception management, if they want you to lose in court, the best thing they can possibly do is get you to go in and completely argue things that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual things that are going on in court. So let's say you murder somebody. Most murderers aren't going to go out, ready to try to fight it. Ted Bundy did, but they're going to, not go through the same sort of process as other people. But if you murder somebody, you committed this crime, they're going to take the legislative acts, which start out as bills. You have the House of Congress and the Senate in each state. And bills are supposed to start in the House, and once they've passed review and votes in the House, they go to the Senate. Once they do their reviews and pass it, if both houses are in agreement, it goes to the governor. Then the governor signs off on it or they veto it. But if they sign off on it, that bill is an act that will eventually come into play. A lot of times they'll have like an enabling clause as to when that thing will start. Maybe the next year it'll start or something along those lines. Now, that is law. So there's a law. They passed a law prohibiting the murder of other people. You can look that up. It's in your statutory code. Go to the criminal, it's going to be under like just a criminal code. Yeah, probably just criminal code. That's how it's going to be titled for just about every state. Now, the procedures, the things that go on in court, usually that's going to be in a separate section. Depending on a state, like some states actually have it under the section of the type of court that it's in. So, I don't know, you've got district courts, superior courts. I'm thinking of North Carolina right now because they've got a really weird index system for their codes. They have a separate section called criminal procedure. You can find things there. But what you would do is you would look for the statute that you're being charged with. They're going to have numbers on them. You can pull that up. So Thomas Springer, in your case, whatever they're trying to hit you with, those code numbers are the things that you want to be looking at. Now, you might say, no, statutes aren't the law. No, they're the law. People that have been saying statutes aren't the law are in two camps. There are two categories. One, there are people that don't have any clue what they're talking about, and they're repeating what they heard from other people who also either did not know what they were talking about or are in the other category. And that other category is people that know what they're talking about and they know they're intentionally misleading you and lying. So there's only two camps. Excuse me. So, when you want to know anything about law as a primary source is only on the paper that it was passed on, so the acts. So, when the bill comes forward to the House, it's going to have writing on it. that's something you can use while studying that particular law that eventually got passed, because uh, they may draw a line through certain sections of what's proposed, and that isn't going to be included in what excuse me, what is proposed and what gets signed off on by the House and eventually the Senate and then the governor. But that paperwork at the very end, if you were to contact your state clerk archivist in Hawaii, they're in the uh, Supreme Court Law Library. That's where all this stuff, once it's signed by uh, the Congress, it gets sent over to that library for archive, in addition to whatever other places they're required to by statutory law. That is a primary source. If you got a certified copy of that, you can walk into a courthouse with it, as long as it's, all related to what you're doing. You can walk into a courthouse and say, in relation to, whatever case that I'm dealing with here, I want to file this into evidence. A judge has no say at that point as to whether or not it goes in. Why? Because it's got a certification on it that indicates from one of their own officials that this is an authentic copy of that particular thing that it's stated to be on whatever the title cover sheet is. And if it's supposed to be, say, chapter 8 of whatever code, they'll indicate that, like chapter 8, pages, whatever. And when you just look at the stuff that I've scanned, people, for God's sakes, like, I've provided you with authentic copies. You're not going to get that from Karl Lentz. Karl Lentz isn't going to show you statutory code that's been certified by state archivists as being, the actual authenticated code that was filed, with them after the legislature was done with it. He's not going to do that. Like, just go look at some of the videos that I've scanned up, copies of these sorts of pieces of code. Those are primary sources of law. What I'm doing right now, the manner that I'm conveying this stuff, I'm not a primary source. I'm a secondary source. I'm the same as Karl Lentz in that respect. I'm not a primary source. A judge is the same as Karl Lentz or myself in that respect. He's not a primary source. The primary source is the thing itself, the law. It's on paper. It's only ever on paper. What they call the common law, the thing that used to not be on paper, they've tried codifying this stuff, putting it on paper. Why? Because you could have a couple different variations on things when it's not written. When it's written, there's not going to be any dispute, unless the dispute is, well, where did this writing come from? Well, this state clerk archivist says it came from them. So that's who the stuff gets filed with after the legislature passes it. So yes, that's it. That's a primary source of info. So there's a lot more work involved to going into court and fighting these people than what you're being shown by people like Lentz. Lentz is there to throw you guys off track. The moment you go into a court and you start saying, I'm, convening my own, courtroom, blah, 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 like, they're going to know, okay, this is somebody, like, we just have to, get safely through this in case, because, some people might be a bit unhinged. They could be anyone could be unhinged, but they're not going to know what to make of you. And many of these judges, I don't think that they're privy to what I think is fully going on. I do think, as I said at the beginning here, that there are bar members and or government agents, uh, very the probability is extremely high that they are, if not ADL, that's Anti-Defamation League members. If they're not that, then they're probably tied in with B'nai B'rith. B'nai B'rith. B apostrophe NAI space Brith. BRITH. You're touching on part of the process and the people that are involved in creating kind of ownership structure of our current society. Now, I believe that there are groups of these people that they're working in concert and they're actively uh, promoting and supporting people like Karl Lentz. And there's other people. There's this guy, I think his name, he's had a couple different names from what I recall by one other researcher, David Champion, a few things. These are people that are actually scam artists. Most of them are going to try to extract money from you if possible. Hey, I'd love some donations, but I already get it. Like I've had one single donation in a 13. What is it? 13? No. 2013 is when I put my first video up, and I tried to get help funding my cases. Because number one, I'm indigent. I'm crippled. I don't have any way to make money. And I thought maybe standing up, showing people these things, other people might get behind me and support me, but they haven't. They might verbally support me, but a pat on the back doesn't do any good when I'm trying to get access to research materials to put out more information for you guys, or for arguments in my cases, most of which I've made available to people. But it's not a big deal. Whatever. I mean, I've gotten used to living and having absolutely no money. Money makes a lot of things in life easier, but when you're in my position, you just have to get used to letting go of things. So, you guys, unfortunately, are coming upon people like Lentz who feed you absolute bullshit. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say for individuals in Thomas Springer's position because, see, this he's gotten himself into Lentz's framework of thinking, and because he's within that framework, he thinks that at least with the court where he messed up is this. I mean, again, like this is going to get you reviewed for mental stability. You can't. I don't know. I mean, I hope you're not you don't have any legitimate mental issues, and are making your situation worse as a result of stumbling onto somebody like Lentz. But you're you're not going to do well, people, if you just tune into somebody, let them talk to you, tell you how the world is, how things work, and you don't, as you're listening to them, if you're not actively thinking about the things they're saying, could this be true? Is this not true? What do I have for factual evidence that backs up what they're saying? And you have to understand, like, you have to become a better person at identifying what you really can call a fact. Because, people are glib with what they think are facts. If you all want to get better at this stuff, here's a way to do it. Go to your state statutory code, look up the evidence code. In the evidence code, just read the entire thing. There are sections within it that will help you understand what at least a court will try to do in an attempt to help isolate and identify facts from non-facts. And they're not going to deal with facts in, they're not going to deal with non-facts in making a ruling for you. If you're presenting non-facts to them, it's as if you're Charlie Brown's mom, right? That's it. That's what you're saying to them, because it has no bearing on anything. When you go into the courtroom, there should be a mental box that you put yourself in terms of what you're going to argue. You may be able to argue things completely outside of what they're used to, but it's still going to be within the mental like box, the argument parameters that you create for yourself when you go in. You're not going to start talking about your dog. You're not going to start talking about a TV show. You shouldn't be talking about the, what the title and status is of that person on the bench, because everything that they're doing is going to be backed up by those guys sitting there with the guns. So if they've created a system which is pretty much covered by statutory code and case law, then work within it. I'm telling you right now, they're not following the stuff that they've created. So why go off on this other, set of issues that is just going to completely get you screwed if you can attack the things that they're supposed to be doing? If there's a section in the statutory code that says a prosecutor is required, or the first pleading is a charge, and they don't do it, why are you going to go in there and start telling a judge they aren't a judge? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't waste your time on that. Hey, I haven't been charged yet. Where are the charges? Or, hey, it's been X number of months. Statute, such and such, which is the statute on the statute of limitations for this state, states that if X months pass, then they can't enter charges. Well, guess what? X months have passed and they haven't entered charges. So what are we doing here? Right? Look at the face on, the judge, and look at Judge Frias' face when I call him out for trying to conflate a charge versus a complaint. I have a very short 3-minute video. People, go look that up. A complaint is not a charge. All across the country, traffic courts everywhere, and quite possibly beyond traffic courts. I don't know, because I haven't had to deal with family court, drug court, or anything of that sort of nature. Just traffic court. They may be doing the same sort of stuff in those other courts. They're not following the code that they've got written. All right, many of you, I guess, don't necessarily like reading either. But if the primary source of law is only written, then you got to make a decision. Either you're going to put energy into fighting this stuff and do it right, go read it, or don't do it at all. Put your time to something else useful. So maybe, you've seen enough, out there. Maybe you agree people like me are on to something and the courts are heavily corrupt, but you either don't feel you've got the capacity, the time, or the interest in doing the same sort of thing to be able to fight them in the court. Well, put your energy someplace else that maybe fights them, maybe helps to alert others to the corruption going on. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is a little bit rambly, definitely a bit preachy, but guess what? A lot of you guys need to hear this stuff. I mean, I've had a win. I have a very strong background in logical thinking, science, research, and just my natural skill set. My standardized testing at various different levels in high school, college, and beyond show that I'm in a very small section of the population that are just we're the most rational, we're the most scientific of thinkers. We excel at cause and effect associations, and it's unfortunate that other people can't operate at least in that sort of manner. See, what this is right here, this is superstitious behavior. Superstitious meaning this, from a behavioral science perspective. behavioral science looks at the pattern of behaviors in association with stimuli in the environment. So if you have, say, an instance where certain things happen, maybe somebody has good things happen repeatedly, then they'll think they've got luck on their side. Luck is a superstitious idea. And when they engage in future behaviors, they're going to think things are going to succeed for them because why? Because they have luck on their side. Prior situations turn out positive. And then maybe this future situation that they think will turn out positive actually turns out negative. So all of a sudden their good luck has turned to bad luck. It's a superstition where the reality of the situation is maybe it was just the dynamics and prior situations and circumstance that made those situations good, creating the notion of luck. And then later situations, the later one, the circumstances just happened to be in such a manner that it was going to go against that person. Hence, that luck changed to something bad. And again, in reality, there's things outside of their control that just weren't going our way that day. So with superstitious behavior here, it's the notion that everything here, this sort of thing, is somehow going to provide a positive outcome in a court hearing. It's not going to. They don't give two shits about this, okay? There's not one single code cited here, so they have nothing to discuss there. There's no discussion on the topic of a code. There's no, there's just absolutely nothing there. So again, I'm telling you guys from my professional training and expertise and my ability to pick up patterns that others can't. With the any of you that do the psychological testing to try to understand yourselves better. On the Myers-Briggs test, I'm an INTJ. So they frame us as being people that are excellent at planning and contingency planning, things of that nature. So again, that would fit in very well with being able to pick up and understand things like law, because law has all sorts of contingencies. If certain things were the case, then maybe sentencing guidelines would change how somebody gets sentenced. These are contingencies. If, then, or, and, logical operators are at play there. Let's see. And the mold has really affected my ability. My working memory is a bit better right now, but the mold toxicity is really messing me up. I've got Botrytis, Botrytis aspergillus, and some Fusarium. I've got the toxins in me. Let's see, where did I want to go with this? I don't know. That's about it. This is a lengthy video. But you guys have to be very careful with what you're doing. If you want a positive outcome in court, then you need to go and look at other situations where positive outcomes occurred. If you go and you take a look at situations where people go in and they're talking about this sort of stuff, all right, there's never a positive outcome. It's just not there. Nobody's ever provided evidence of a positive outcome raising the sort of issues that this individual is raising here. So, if I was to get, say, a copy of everything that was filed in whatever, case this guy's wants to discuss here, if I was to look at that, I could probably piece together pretty quickly that at all steps of the way, he at no point argued anything specific to the statute he's being charged with, other than maybe something indicating his innocence. And you don't want to argue that, not until you get to trial. Anything prior to that, you want to argue on what lawyers like to brainwash people with by telling them it's a technicality or a procedure. No, what you're calling a technicality or procedure is law. That's the correct term for it. Somebody didn't get off on a technicality. They got off on law. If the law says X, then the outcome is going to have to be tied to X, not some... See, when they call it a technicality, they make it sound as if it's something other than law. That, oh, they got off because of some other reason than law. The only way that really happens is a judicial trial or a jury trial where somebody gets found not guilty, like O.J. Simpson. The evidence was pretty clear. The guy killed Nicole, his wife. I think it was Nicole. He killed his wife, and he got cleared. So that would be a situation where somebody got off, and it wasn't related to the law. But everything else, it's tied with the law. So you just have to look for winners, and if you've got people that sound like they're putting out correct information, but they've lost stuff, if they're not publishing what they've done so that you can actually look at it for yourself, then request it. And if they will not give it up, try to find out where the court is. Get your hands on it. And you can read it then. And you can see, was this person making insane arguments that have absolutely nothing to do with anything? Or did they actually raise the issues that they're arguing now, and trying to put forth is accurate? So you need to be able to review that stuff. But I'm going to wind this down. This is, what is it, like 20 minutes? Yeah, 30 minutes already. So if you're still here, thanks for listening. Stay tuned. I will keep trying to put stuff out. It may take a while. I've got a lot going on trying to tackle the mold thing. I mean, I'm not recording anything when I have to spend 2-3 hours in a sauna blanket trying to bust a sweat to get these toxins out and try to heal myself here faster, because my life has been a bit of a living hell. I've had a hard couple of decades, but bottom line is I've been pretty effective and content with the stuff that I've done in that time. I've picked things that would bring satisfaction to my life, make me feel like I've accomplished some stuff. This has been one of those things, because I actually thought I was going to be dead in 2017. In 2012 it could have been when I first started having some mycotoxin problems. It's hard for me to say, but I started getting cold. I got cold real easily, and it's the sort of thing that isn't natural, and when it lingers, it'll put some fear in you. It's like, all right, I don't know what's happening here. I might not be around in the future because of this. So I decided to go ahead and tackle some of this court corruption stuff, and hopefully some of you are benefiting. I think some of you are. It could be a little disheartening at times to have people come on here like this and start telling me, oh, you don't know what you're doing, or blah blah blah. And it's like, dude, you haven't even looked at my work. Like right here, you forfeited your rights, blah blah blah. Like, dude, rights are an abstract thing first and foremost. Okay, they're not tangible. You can't even touch them. It's a matter of interactions with people. So, there's this whole thing. This is a complex thing to even get into. I'd prefer not to even get into the abstracts on this. But point being, if courts have written about what constitutes certain rights and when they're violated, and you can make arguments on those. Unfortunately, this individual, he probably hasn't read any of those things. Actually, a lot of these people, I'd be surprised if they even read the constitutions for their states. I mean, there just seems to be like this percentage of people that they got fight in them, they got fire, they are ready to go, but again, they don't have the right tools, and they're when they're looking for the right thing to help them with the fight, they find a wrong thing. So you know, start reading, guys. If you guys have fight, but you don't read much at all, take baby steps. Go find stuff that you enjoy reading before you even try to tackle law, because you have to have patience. This is a mature topic. Like, it requires patience. It requires emotional control. You can create. You can actually, if you're somebody that tends to be like very expressive, you can actually become more reserved by reading, by studying. It's a just a mental change, a process. I would consider it maturing. So look at this as a step in growing, in your life. Take the time to start reading, and then when you have children, from a young age, just get them into reading. Encourage them on the things that they actually find interesting, because if they really don't like it, you're going to create a very strong hatred of it for them. So, anyways, this will be like the second ending. If you guys like this, if it was useful, give it a thumbs up. Uh, Subscribe if you aren't, and click the notification bell. And hopefully, I can knock out some other stuff that's interesting soon for you guys. But we'll see. I don't have a lot of energy. All right. Until next time.